Well, good morning everyone and welcome to today's video. We're going to talk a little bit about the Amish and the almost Amish lifestyle and how that can save you $500 a month. The first thing we want to do is we want to go to the grocery store, and I'm going to show you what I typically buy and a little bit of stock up for the winter time. One way to save so much money in the almost Amish lifestyle is to think about the Amish woman and to think about what would the Amish woman buy on a day-to-day or week-to-week. Most Amish women only go once a month. Some maybe go weekly. It all depends on the season. At the winter time, the seasons seem to slow up for the women and the men, and so they have a little more time, and that's when they will go thrift store shopping. That's when they will do more of their shopping. But usually it's once a month. What do the Amish women buy? Staples. They make everything from scratch. Now, of course, the Amish may be not quite as much as they used to be back 50, 60 years ago. But in general, the Amish women do like to cook, and they live very frugal lives. And so what else can we learn about them? Cooking from scratch. The men hunt deer. The men have their own animals that they raise and slaughter. So really meat is something the Amish woman would not buy. A lot of them have their own dairy cows, and so of course they have their own milk. Not all. More and more Amish are becoming kind of like me, as far as I know a lot of Amish families only 5 miles from my home that live in a mobile home and have a small farmette, and their husbands are construction workers. Well, they're builders, that kind of construction. Most of the Amish men do work with each other, and they work for English people, and they work for themselves, but they have construction, and so they do a lot of construction work and roofing and things like that. How I save over $500 a month the Amish way is simply because I buy only what the Amish would buy, and that is everyday staples, and do all of the cooking from scratch. In order to do all that, I have to change my whole direction on how I shop. I don't shop as many of the convenience foods anymore, and I'm learning to cook everything from scratch, and that is how I'm able to save the money. I can easily save $500 a month by doing this. Another reason why you save so much money is because when you cook from scratch, you're eating food that's satisfying, and that way you're not so hungry. All of the convenience foods have empty calories. In other words, when you consume them, you may be full for a moment, but an hour or two later, you become hungry again. But when you cook from scratch, you're using more whole foods, which in turn will feed you a lot longer. Eating oatmeal, eating everyday natural foods, foods that your grandma would have known what it was, is the kind of foods the Amish buy. And in doing so, they even make desserts, but they make them from scratch, and not Twinkies and things that have dense calories, but those calories don't last. So this is how I am saving $500 a month, the Amish method. And now I'm going to talk to you a little bit something personal, the difference between Mennonites and Amish, and where does that all play with my life today. So let me make it clear. I did not grow up Amish. I don't have Amish in my family, but I do have old order Mennonites, block bumper Mennonites, and the Mennonites are a lot like the Amish, but there's quite a starking difference. Now, family members that were two women, and they were horse and buggy people. We call them horse and buggy people because they're not Amish, they're Joe Wangers. And those of you who know me personally may know what my name is. My married name and my birth name and my adopted name are all Mennonite names. So what happened was the Mennonites were actually the first, and they were persecuted, and they were persecuted in England, in Switzerland. They were persecuted far from here. And they were under the direction where they had to believe in the Catholic Church. Now, I'm not going to get into the religions too much of it, but I want to give you a little bit of a clarification about the Amish and the Mennonites. What happened was then the Mennonites had their own little colony, and they had their own little belief system. And their belief system was all of the things that talk about plain living. And so they fled to here from all over the East Europe, all over, and most of my family, all of the people in my family pretty much were all farmers. And so what happened was the Amish is a branch off the Mennonites that were more strict because they branched off. So Menno Simons was the Mennonites, and I think it was the Amish was, I forget what his name was because I don't know a whole lot about the Jacob Almond, I think, something like that. I don't know a whole lot about the Amish side of it, you know, how it started, but I do know that they broke off of the Mennonites. Now, the Mennonites drive cars, the Mennonites have electricity, and the Mennonites would be considered more liberal. And the Amish, of course, you all know, the Amish dress the plain, have the horse and buggy, and they have the 17th to 18th century and the 19th century lifestyle, where the Mennonites are a little more modern. But if we go back to the old days and we go back to how they lived, I know we can't fully do that. So it's almost Amish. In other words, we're kind of breaking off. So we're breaking off from the Mennonites, we're breaking off from the Amish, and we're almost Amish. So we are kind of a little bit on the ladder of more modern. And with the Mennonites and with the Amish, depending on your state, depending on your county, it is totally different because they all broke off into little hands. I say it's like a tree with roots, and the tree was this one foundation, and then you have the roots, and that's how it is with the Amish and the Mennonites. So if I start saying something about the Mennonites in Lancaster County, people in Ohio will say, well, that's not true, because the Mennonites and the Amish in Ohio are totally different in a lot of ways. They interpreted the Bible different by the way the bishops are. Now, my uncle was an old order Mennonite bishop of Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and he was very strict, and I always have memories of him because he held that dignity. And so when he was at the family get-togethers and things, he always held that dignity. You know, people looked up to him. You know, you cast lots in order to become a bishop in the Mennonite church. And so I just remember that. I remember a lot of things because I was such an impressionable person. And I remember things that my brothers and sisters don't necessarily take notice of as much because I'm a very sensitive person. I would look at my mother, and I would look at my dad, and I would look about things that was happening over that time and how they were being treated or how they weren't being treated. You know, I was a sponge, and I soaked it all up. And I enjoy it. I enjoy learning about the Mennonites and learning about the Amish and enjoy as much of their life as I want in my life. But saving $500 a month is just simple. You have a list and you use just basic foods. Basic foods are still a lot cheaper than what the foods are convenience foods. And here's why. Convenience foods may have a cheaper price tag to it. So if you get a frozen pizza or you get a frozen whatever, a TV dinner, it may have a cheaper price tag to it, but you're not getting enough a bang for your buck. And so in other words, that frozen pizza, it's full of artificial calories. And so what's happening is you may not be full, you may not be able to fill your family as much if you make homemade pizza. Now don't get me wrong, I have been known to eat a frozen pizza here and there. But if you really want to save money, you make everything by scratch. I'm learning to make my own bagels by scratch. One, it's so much cheaper. Two, I feel like you're getting more nutrients in it, and I feel like I'm getting fuller on this food, so I'm not eating as much of it. It's not as much empty calories, if that makes any sense to any of you. And so when you make your own bread, now it's work, it is work, and you have to decide if your time is worth the work, or if the work is worth the time. So if you were working full time away from home, or even at home, this may be stuff that it just is too much work. But if you have time, you can save a lot of money. Prepper Princess does a lot of videos. Now I talk about her a lot because her and I are friends, and she really impacted my life in an amazing way. Many years ago, she did something very kind to me, helped me out at a time when I needed it the most by sharing my channel to all of her subscribers. And that was a life-changing moment. So I will talk about her at different times because she is someone who inspired me. And she does the same thing. She buys a chicken. She buys carrots. She buys potatoes. And she buys onions. She makes a lot of meals with that. A TV dinner would cost, a couple TV dinners would cost what she could probably make 8 or 9 meals, 10 meals with. So that's why I talk about cooking from scratch and everything being from scratch. And so I'm going to continue to talk about how the Almost Amish lifestyle can save us money, and it also can save us our sanity. Really, it can. I've learned to take a step back, take a deep breath, and know that Rome wasn't built in one day. And as we age, so does our ability to do as much. But with the Almost Amish lifestyle, it's such a lifestyle that it's become second nature. It's not rushed. It's not hurried. When you're driving a horse and buggy, it's not hurried. One, you have to harness the horse. You have to feed the horse. You have to take care of the horse. You have to take the horse out of the barn. You have to finish hooking up the horse, get into the buggy, drive to where you're going at not top-notch speed, low speed. So everything about the Amish lifestyle is slow. Do we have to get in a car and drive 70 miles an hour? Do we have to live rushed? Do we have to run from here to there and everything have to be done perfectly and done? No. And so not only can it save us money, it can give us what we need in this day and age. Our minds are not meant to be so bombarded with all the things that are happening. It's not. Our minds are not meant for that. We were not programmed for that. We are not robots. We're humans. And taking a step back, especially as you get older, is so much better. All right, so now we are in my pantry, and my pantry is pretty much exactly how I want it. Everything has been gone through, everything has been itemized, and I have a list of all of the things that I have. But now we have all of these jars. Now this here will last me all winter long, and will probably, well, it all depends. Since I am making my own bagels, and I eat bagels every day, I eat one every day for breakfast, I will be using up a lot of the flour. But the sugar will last me now all winter because I'm not really making a whole lot of jams and jellies anymore. And of course, I have enough of brown sugar to last me a lifetime. Now, of course, I could go ahead and I could make my own brown sugar, but I just skipped that out because it's just as easy for me to go ahead and buy my brown sugar. To me, the price is about the same. There is no difference really in the price. And for me, it's just easier to do this. I'm going to go ahead and put these under my little table here because these are the 2026. Now, we're not in 2026, but these will be for the 2026 stock up. And that way I have my other ones, as you can see, right over here. So I have, this is still 2025, and I have a couple of 2024 of my grains and my noodles. But I pretty much have everything pretty much used up. I don't have anything older than 2024 of my noodles, which they can last 10 years. So there you go, everyone. It's my pantry. I'm gonna sit down here just a moment and take a look at everything. I really am happy with how it turned out. It took me a couple months to get everything in my home exactly how I want it, but I have it there now. And now I can sit back and maybe not be so busy when it comes to all of this decluttering and working in my home. I tell you what, it takes a little bit to get started and it's a lot of work, but there is always that end goal, and that is what you envision your project to be. And so I'm finally finished with all of it. I think so. I'm finished with all of it. I cannot wait for spring because I have spring things I want to work on. But take care, everyone. We'll see you guys in the next one. I got to go ahead and put all of this away.